minutes.
Well, I want to thank you, Mr. Pocan, for yielding and for your leadership and for calling us together this evening to talk about what trade means to American paychecks. And, you know, thank you again, because I was sitting in my office and I was listening to my colleagues speak so eloquently about the need for Congress, for individual members of Congress representing those of us representing 725,000 Americans to have a voice in a process that's so important to American paychecks. And as I sat there, I thought I owed it to my constituents in the 4th Congressional District in Maryland to come to this floor to stand on their side for their paychecks. And so I thank you for that. As I listened to some of my colleagues, one of the things that I heard Ms. Kaptur say was to talk about the job loss in the manufacturing sector, in the clothing, textile sector in the Carolinas. I represent a district in Maryland, but my family's from North Carolina. A lot of my family members had those good-paying jobs in the mills. They were making the sheets and pillowcases and T-shirts and hats, and they all lost their jobs. And all of those jobs went someplace else, but they didn't stay in North Carolina. And that was a tragedy. It was a tragedy for my family, as it's been a tragedy for families all across this country. I remember the NAFTA debate. So many members of Congress, I wasn't in Congress at the time, Mr. Pocan, you weren't in Congress at the time, but we remember the debate. We remember they told us, well, there would be other jobs that would be created, so don't worry about any jobs that would be lost. They said the jobs in the service sector would grow and they would stay. And you know, almost one of the first things to happen after NAFTA went into effect is all of those call centers closed. Those were service sector jobs. And they left along with millions of manufacturing jobs. In my home state of Maryland, we lost 70,000 jobs, and we're a small state, but we lost those just to NAFTA. And so when people tell me now as a member of Congress, we want you to just fast track this trade deal, this Trans-Pacific Partnership deal, and just trust us that the process is going to work. Just trust us that all you have to do is rubber stamp the trade deal. I remember, and Mr. Pocan, you remember, and that's what requires us for our constituents to say no way, that we cannot just give fast-track authority hand it over, and in effect just say whatever the deal is that's been negotiated, we will just take that deal for the American people. Well, you and I know better. And one of the things that has long concerned me is getting wind that our trade representative, on behalf of my constituents and your constituents, were negotiating away Buy American provisions, negotiating them away without us even having a voice in that conversation. And let's look at those Buy America provisions. You know, in 2012, 68 of our colleagues joined us in saying to President Obama, don't negotiate away the Buy America provisions. And then just last year, 120 members of Congress said, Mr. President, don't negotiate away the Buy America provisions. And so I see that the wind is really beneath our sails, because the American people understand that when you negotiate away Buy America, what you do is negotiate away the buying power and the jobs of American workers. You trade what is, in effect, billions of dollars of American taxpayer buying power for very little buying power coming from the other direction. And so I am troubled that we have a trade representative that just wants to say, take the deal and run. And those of us who stand in the steps of American workers, we're in their place. We're representing them. We have their voice. We need to have their voice, and we have to have their back and say no to fast track and say no to the TPP and no to provisions that would trade away what we know the statistics are. I mean, the U.S. procurement market is more than 10 times larger than all the TPP procurement markets combined. And so that means that we would trade away preferential access for U.S. firms to $556 billion in federal government procurement. For what? $53 billion in return? We have to say no to this deal. And so I want to thank you, Mr. Pocan, for bringing us together. And it's good that we're doing this from day one in the United States House of Representatives, because what we're saying to American workers is that not only will we stand with you on the first day of the Congress and the next day of the Congress, but all the way to the end to keep from trading away millions of your jobs. Thank you very much, and I yield back.